Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sam at 64, and I'm not joined alongside Anderson 9132. He's busy doing whatever he's doing, so he won't be joining us for this week. But we have once again from last week we have Dave Lawrie from Nuts. Hello, Dave.
Hello, everyone.
And he
I'm
was sorry, go
They
on.
let me back again.
Yeah, we didn't shut you out. It's nice, you know. It's kind of a family thing going on. There's a bit of a vibe going on here. You know, Dave's kindly offered to join us for I think the rest of the series, haven't you, Dave? So
Yeah, think
yeah,
so.
so you know, it should be pretty fun to have his insight. And we've been joined by a good friend of his and a good friend of Robot Wars in general. Craig Danby of Team Foxic and Team Danby. Hello, Craig.
Hola.
Yeah, I feel
Hola.
outnumbered here. You know, two Roboteers to one fan. I feel a bit outnumbered. I feel a bit, a bit
Well,
intimidated.
you were at filming, so
Well,
kinda.
I was gonna say I was in this heat. I was actually in it.
You were in it.
I was in
Was
it.
it?
I was in it for 1 second.
So
Yeah, I
you
saw
were.
you.
Were you
I saw.
overdoser?
Too soon. All right. Well, I think that's enough of that. I think we should just move on to the heat. And from my point of view, I want to start off with the presenters. I think we briefly discussed this before we started recording. We've had a nightmare recording this, by the way. It has to be said. It's been an absolute pain in the backside. But I mean, from my point of view, this was the week that Dara and Angela really started to come into their own as like their own people, rather than they're not Craig Charles and they're not whoever else is presenting with them. I thought they were really really good this week. They were very interactive.
Yeah, well, like I said last week, I think people are starting to give them a bit more of a chance than the initial knee-jerk reaction. I think this week they were really good, but I think also if you go back and watch the rest of the series, that they come across really well there as well. And it's kind of we've been a bit unfair on them up until now, maybe.
Possibly. I mean, from my point of view, I thought they were, they this week in particular, they just shone a little bit more for me. I don't know, whether it's a case of just getting used to them more, or it's a case of this week they just seemed a little bit more comfortable with the show or whatever else.
I think the editing side of it has helped.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
they didn't have to rush anything like they did in the first episode. The first episode, they had to reintroduce the audience to Robot Wars, and they had to reintroduce the arena and reintroduce the house robots. And that episode, yeah, kind of felt a little bit rushed, but they were as good in the first episode as they were in the second and in the third. I think we're just getting used to them as an audience.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, from it's I haven't had any particular problem. I know some people out there have had issues with Dara and Angela for various reasons. I don't know why that is, because I thought they've been fairly solid threat, but for me this week they just kind of shone for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I suppose we just move on to the battle, shall we? We haven't really got much news to talk about. I mean, the house robots, we got to see a bit more of them this week, which is nice to see. People were complaining the first week that they didn't do anything. Last week, Craig, unfortunately, Foxic bore the brunt of most things. The house robots did. I mean,
Well, that was mainly my own fault, I would say, but yeah, I would agree.
yeah, it bore the brunt of most things. But we'll move on to the actual battles of this week, and we'll start off with, first of all, an apology. I think because I think myself, Dave, and Anderson owe Team Glitterbomb an apology. We mentioned,
Right.
yeah, we mentioned it looked like a bit like a previous entry in a previous series, and obviously, while it does, at the same time, it's its own robot in its own right. And from my point of view, Glitterbomb were fantastic.
Yeah, Glitterbomb were the stars of this week. It doesn't really matter how the performance went. It was all about young April. And I think the reaction on Twitter's been amazing,
Oh
and the
god, yeah.
reaction on social media in general has just been amazing. Like everyone fell in love with April in this episode.
I think that was it. I don't think Glitter Bomb was necessarily the star. I think April was the star.
Yeah,
Oh
definitely.
yeah,
I think from my memory, I can't recall like an out and out girl power kind of team. It doesn't really. I can't really think of any off the top of my head from the previous series, and I think this is a really. I think the message behind the robot is a lot more important than the robot itself.
Absolutely.
I think that looking at it from like a from this point of view, it's more a case of girls can do this as well. Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean that's obviously from an internal point of view, we all kind of know that's the case anyway. But it's refreshing to see on the outside as well.
Yeah, I think the thing with April is the fact that April's such a pivotal member of the team. She's not just a child who's been brought along. She designed the robot. She gave all the orders for the robot. The robot is to her specification. And I think that's the main reason why everyone's getting behind her so well, is that
she's involved.
Hopefully, yeah, exactly. I think hopefully as the series kind of develops and we get into series 2, series 3, she's going to come back because she's so loved, and we'll just get her again and again and again. She'll get better and better and better, and it'll be like a new version of Joe Watts from before, where we sort of grow up, and we're going to watch April kind of grow into this amazing roboteer now. It's just fantastic.
She's going to be champion.
Yeah, she will.
Well, honestly, I mean, thinking of Glitter Bomb from like a competitive point of view, as we said, wasn't the best of performances. I actually felt quite unlucky because they had a gas leak in the first round, and that kind of ended all hope of going through, really. But had it not happened, could it have gone through? Well, there's a pretty good chance it would have done.
I think so. I think there were definitely moments in this first melee. There was a bit where King B ran at them and ran straight up it and flipped over, and there were bits where the axe was working and landing blows where they were definitely in the thick of the action. And I think if they could have continued in that vein without the technical issues, it would have been a close match.
Well, I genuinely think that King B was having proper control problems after they got turned over. Yeah. So I think if Glitter Bomb had kept going, if Glitter Bomb, if they didn't have the pneumatics issue, I think they may have gone through instead of King B.
Yeah, I think if it had gone all the way to the judges, that it definitely would have put up a strong case with Dan Tomkia to go through.
I think as if the axe was working, probably would have gone straight through King B anyway. But unfortunately, we didn't get to see that because obviously the axe had issues. But as I said already, the message behind the robot is definitely more important than the robot itself in this case, and I really hope to see them back. I genuinely think, I think they will be back, and I think they'll be back a lot stronger.
I think that Glitter Bomb has already won Robot Wars. It's won the moral vote.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, the reaction on social media and all over Twitter yesterday, I just saw people just like saying, "Oh, Glitter Bomb are amazing." It was just a constant feed of it. It was great, and that for me was just, it was quite heartwarming to see. That this girl has just captured the imagination really of so many people.
Yeah, well, hopefully she's captured the imagination of like some little girls out there that want to like, hey Dad, go into the garage, get the lawnmower, let's do this. We can do better than Glitter Bomb.
Yeah, exactly.
And they may not necessarily be able to do better than Glitter Bomb, but if it gets them wanting to do it, that's fantastic.
That actually brings us quite neatly onto our next robot, really, Overdoser. And again, the message behind Overdoser is more important than the robot itself.
Exactly.
Well, I know that last week I was championing Overdoser. I'm going to start again now. I know this robot was... They won't mind me saying it's terribly made.
With respect to Overdoser, it really was.
They built it in 5 days. They knew they'd built it in 5 days. They knew they didn't stand a hope. And they lasted 23 seconds, I think it was, in actual combat. Yes. But those 23 seconds are so important to me for the future of where Robot Wars goes, because I think that if you, especially if you take something like BattleBots, if people have been watching BattleBots, they'll be sitting there going, I can't do that, because they're all
BattleBots are like sponsored and they've got lots of money invested in them, and not the average person can't go out and spend, say,
BattleBots has become unobtainable, whereas Robot Wars is going the opposite way.
Yes.
Robot Wars is trying to say, yeah, look, 9-year-old girls can drive heavyweight robots. Guys can take a wheelchair, slap it in MDF, put a head strimmer on it, and boom, you're in Robot Wars.
Yeah, exactly. You look at BattleBots, it's you have to pay your way in, whereas Robot Wars you don't really have to.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the thing with Overdoser is that, like you say, Sam, the message is so important. There is nobody who will be listening to this podcast who isn't an enormous fan of the show. And if you look at Overdoser and you don't think, I could probably knock that together given enough kind of hope and luck, then suddenly you're in the shed, you're building for next series with one eye on maybe lasting more than 23 seconds.
Exactly. I think that they said that themselves. They obviously they clearly had the bug straight away. They were saying as soon as they came out of the fight, the interview with them was like, oh yeah, we have to think a bit more seriously if we want to last longer than 23 seconds next year. They straight away, they've never done it before, and they're already thinking next year I have to come back.
Yeah, they were wandering around the pits after their fight, just looking at everyone else's robots, going, "What's your armor?" And they go, somebody go, "Oh, it's this," and they go, "What have you got for drive?" "Oh, I've got this." "What have you got for batteries?" "I've got this." "And how do you power your weapon?" "Oh, I've got this." And they were straight away. They were back to the bench. They were writing down things and exchanging details with people. They want to do well, and I don't think it will take much for them to do very well. They've got a bug.
Yeah, they've definitely got the bug, and I think it's such an important aspect to actually get behind the scenes and start to drink it all in. You learn so much that way. But I think the important thing that Overdoser have also done is laid down a benchmark
For everyone else coming in.
Yeah, literally any amateur team now. It's not about reaching the semi-finals. It's not about getting to the grand final. It's about lasting more than 23 seconds in a battle with an amateur team. And I think that's as noble a goal for the next series as any other would be.
Absolutely. I think, given that, as I said, it was built in 5 days. While it wasn't obviously going to be the most competitive thing, I think we poked fun at the robot a number of times, saying, "Oh, it's a bit of a shed," basically.
Yeah.
But the team themselves, they were great fun. They were laughing at the robot just getting smashed to bits by Dan Tomke. That was it was great to see, and I think that's as important. To see the fact that they knew it was going to be terrible, but at the same time they were enjoying it. They were enjoying the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the phrase I coined with them for next series is "come and have a go if you think you're soft enough."
Oh dear.
It's like, come on, get in the shed, build another shelving unit, paint it luminous yellow, and see if you can outlast
I did like the luminous yellow. I thought, if you're gonna draw attention to the fact that it's gonna be smashed to bits, at least make it obvious. Yeah, we're bright yellow. We're gonna be great.
It's like it's the new version of the challenge bell. It's the Overdoser challenge for next time. Can you enter a wooden robot made out of a wheelchair and last longer than 23 seconds? Come and have a go at that one.
It'd be quite impressive if you did, to be fair.
Yeah. One day, one of these robots is going to make it through the group stages, whether it's because someone carries them through for tactical reasons, but it's going to be so good to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely, and then they'll get into the head-to-heads and just get completely mashed. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Any further thoughts on Overdoser as a team or as a robot? Really, was there anything more to say?
Just come back next time. We need more.
Yes, absolutely.
We need that team back.
Yeah, and the same goes for. I think we did mention it for Glitter Bomb as well, but they have to come back as well. And seriously, I honestly thought they were very unlucky, and I think potentially could have gone through had it not had axe issues. But that's.
I think if it had been about 10 degrees warmer, they wouldn't have had those issues.
Yeah, it was very cold in that warehouse. Everyone was in their coats and everything else.
That day of filming in particular was a very cold day.
I remember the warm-up guy. I think he said it was like it was either -3 or something inside the warehouse. It was ridiculously cold. It was
so cold.
It was. Don't Mentor, if you're listening, next year please do it a little bit later in the year. It was so cold.
Just one heater. Please.
Yeah, just put a bit of infrared here. They're great. But.
Those furry waistcoats were functional, but we never meant them to.
Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah.
Style and substance. What a thing. I suppose we should move on to King B, and my goodness me, that is an old robot now.
Yeah. Well,
King B is just so good.
Yeah.
I love King B.
Yeah, it's like, again, it wasn't the most competitive of robots, but I'm so glad they came back.
I think King B's a Roboteer's robot. Like, they walk into the pits and everyone's just pleased that they're there. It's like going home for tea after you've had a cold day of football when you're a small boy and you go home and your tea's on the table. It's like you walk into the pits and King B's there. You suddenly feel like everything's okay with the world.
It's like a big woolly jumper.
Yes. And the team are so great. Like,
honestly, they came across so well on TV. I mean, as they always do. Simon Harrison and everyone else involved with that team, they just seem so calm, and they just seem so pleased that it was back. To be honest with you, that they were able to go out and show King B to the world again.
Yeah, and it was so good to hear Natsuko have a talk as well. It's like she's been in the background a lot.
Who knew that King Buxton spoke Japanese?
Well, we all did, you see.
I mean, there's a reason. That's probably the reason why they've been doing terribly for the last God knows how many series. No one could understand what it was trying to say.
There was a thing on their biog that said they had to import parts from Japan or else it wouldn't work properly. It wouldn't run on the American or UK counterpart of the same part. They had to get it from Japan.
Wow.
Which I just find that so kind of fun, and
That's great.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that sells it is they genuinely believe it. Like it's
I have to say, like a friend of mine messaged me straight away because like he grew up with the earlier series of Robot Wars and then kind of tailed off towards the end and didn't really lost interest.
Yeah.
And King Buxom was like one of the robots he was really excited to see again, and like King obviously coming through to King B remix, and you know the little glitter ball on their stand in the pits and the little disco light, that was great. It was just all like, you know, you just kind of got like an 80s vibe from it. It was wonderful.
Yeah. The great thing about King B Remix is the forks now rotate, which you
I
see
did notice that, yeah.
Yeah, in their little biog filming, you get to see a bit of that. But Simon said he learned so much from previous series when he kept getting stuck into the wall, the polycarbonate side of the arena, that he wanted to be able to undrill himself from the wall. So to go through the effort of putting a tiny motor in it and a tiny battery
to get the forks to spin. That's brilliant.
It's just
That's
wonderful.
such a clever idea.
Yeah, it's such a good detail, and I think that's why he's a Robotier's Robotier. Like, everyone goes to Simon for help and advice.
I can't remember. It might have been you that wrote about this, Dave. About the they build their own speed controllers. I can't remember, and you know that's so rare.
Yeah,
that's so rare. I mean, I don't really know much about speed controllers. I'm a bit of a complete noob when it comes to robots in general. But like, I just find that quite interesting. The fact that they rely on themselves a lot more than say other people do is it's quite interesting.
What's really interesting about I mean, I'm not technical. I said this last week. Everyone in the community knows I'm basically consistently at amateur level. But what's really interesting in Robot Wars is the people who are techies who build their own speed controllers aren't the people you'd expect. So there was one time we went to an event and there was just a conversation between Simon Harrison from King B and my teammate from Nuts, Lawrie, just having this conversation about how best to build speed controllers, and you wouldn't automatically put those two people at the kind of height of the tech.
Yeah, definitely. As in terms of like the competitive teams, generally they borrow speed, or they purchase speed controllers from like other people. Whereas as you said, it's quite interesting to see like Nuts and King B of all teams using their own speed controllers. It's kind of odd.
Yeah, there was a huge moment at the filming where Lawrie had to stay behind and help get Pulsar working, and that's just the kind of, it's like, Lawrie, why have you built Nuts when you're capable of
Pulsar?
And it's the correct attitude as far as I'm concerned, and it's why I was so happy to be part of that team. Is we can do stuff like that. We just choose not.
Yeah, why? Exactly. Why should you? Any further thoughts on King B in round one? I mean, it did kill Overdozer.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
I think that what it did to Overdozer was it's got Overdozer had this wedge thing on the back, and I don't think it actually killed Overdozer. I think it rammed it, it bent that down, and because they've got casters on the front, I think it beached itself so its wheels weren't touching the floor.
Oh dear!
So that when it got to the pits and they tried it, it goes, oh, it's working.
Yeah, so it wasn't actually dead. It was just sort of pinned.
It was kind of pinned.
Oh dear!
Yeah, it came out of that fight kind of fully functional, and they were a bit confused about it. So I think Craig's probably right. I think he just sort of cut the bottom out of it, and just beached itself on its own.
And to all those out there who are wondering, why there was only one picture of Overdose on the website, that's the reason why it disintegrated in the first round.
Yeah. BBC turned up to do the pictures on the second day or the third day, so it's why the picture of Team Nuts, it's already wrecked.
Yeah, you got the sticky tape on the wheel.
Yeah, that was post carbide. So,
well, there you go. And obviously, the other robot in this four-way was Dan Tomkier, and it was pretty much, it was basically like having the really athletic kid at school in with all the nerds.
Yeah,
I think that's the best
like
way.
having the athletic kid at school from 10 years ago who's now married and got kids, still running around like just beating up kids in the schoolyard.
The school bullies come back to beat everyone else up.
Which is an absolutely accurate description of Mike Lambert, the guy that originally built it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we mentioned this briefly before we started recording. Personally, I loved having Dan Tomkier back as a competitor, which is it's really great to see. but I was a bit disappointed we didn't see Envy from Shane Swan. But at the same time, he doesn't have Envy anymore, and that's a whole different subject entirely. But I think
I would like to have seen Envy. We know that Shane is capable of building something fantastic like Envy. So I was disappointed he came with Dan Tom Kier. I understand why he came with Dan Tom Kier, but Envy would have been cool.
I was gonna say because I think realistically Envy would have got in as well because it was a unique enough flipper because it was purely because it was front hinged that it would have got in probably. But
I think I think the thing with Dan Tomkier is it's very easy for fans to kind of point at it and go, "Oh, they just entered someone else's robot." But it's a bit like last week with Will with Shockwave that was based on previous machine, and Chimera was based on a previous machine. But the Dan Tomkier has been rebuilt from the ground up.
oh yeah, it's an all new robot, isn't it?
Yes, it's their robot. They've completely got the blessing of Mike Lambert to use it, but it's now their robot, and he called it their version of Dan Tomkier. So I think to take credit away from those guys is
No, you're right.
Yeah, it wasn't a case of like taking credit away. It was more a case of it would have been cool to see Envy back, but at the same time, I was happy to see Dan Tomkier all the same. I think it wouldn't have been Robot Wars without them, really, wouldn't it? Would it without Dan Tomkier in some shape or form in the series?
We needed some kind of legendary robots back, and the fact that they've kept up with the live events and things, so Dan Tomkier is not as it was 12 years ago. And,
yeah, definitely not. It's another level now, isn't it?
Yeah, it can still come in and hold its own in a fight. So it makes sense to bring them back as one of the older robots because they've advanced with the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. In this fight, it just kind of dominated everything, really, didn't it? It was just there was no mercy given to anyone.
No, I think they had the ability to kind of pick and choose who they wanted to take through, but based on all three of the other robots in this competition, I don't think it would have mattered really who they sort of chose to take through.
I think realistically, like the one that would have gone through with Dan Tomkier was always going to be like susceptible in the head-to-heads. I think given that. Well, we'll get to the head-to-heads in a bit, but I think of those four, if Dan Tomkier hadn't have gone through, that would have been unreal. That would have been an insane shock. But as it turns out, they just did the job, didn't they? Let's face it.
Yeah, they dominated. It's that simple.
Sadly, Dan Tomkier was a bit too dominant. I would like to have seen somebody sort of challenge him a little bit, but no, I think you can't really argue with the result. Dan Tomkier was fantastic.
Yeah,
King B was still mobile, so yeah.
Yeah,
you can only play with the hand that you're dealt. This is what we were saying
that's very true.
And if you're in with three robots that aren't going to challenge you too much, then you put on an exhibition and you dominate them. That's what it's all about. So kudos to those guys, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. They did the job that they needed to do. So obviously in that first round, out went Glitter Bomb and Overdoser, through go King B and Dan Tomkier, and we move on to our second first round match with Big Nipper, TR2, Supernova, and Orte. And I think we'll start with Orte, if I may.
Yeah.
Didn't last very long. I think I mentioned this to. I can't remember who I mentioned this to. They lasted less amount of time than Overdoser did.
Yes.
Which is amazing. I think I also have to do a quick shout out to a guy called American Killjoy. He was meant to be here this week with us as well, but unfortunately he had work issues because he's American and he has weird time zones and things. And his tip to win the series was Orte. And as soon as he saw that fight, and he just messaged me straight away going, "For God's sake!" Like, because he also predicted that Witch Doctor would win BattleBots. It's just not been a good. Or no, it was it was Son of Waiachi that he said that would win BattleBots, and it just hasn't been a good couple of weeks for him. It really hasn't.
I think Orte is the classic example of any robot can go out. Those guys, they built it so strongly. They'd armored it up. It was so much stronger than Bigger Brother ever was. But it was just that it was one hit from Supernova and the link came out, and that's it. It doesn't matter if you're seeded 1 or you're Overdoser. If your link falls out, you stop working. And
I think the amazing thing about that was, like, if you think back to Bigger Brother taking on Hypnodisc, he took all that damage and managed to survive, and the link didn't pop out, and then one hit from Supernova, and then that's it, game over. It's just kind of like, wow, it's kind of strange, but it's I suppose it's one of those things. As ever, the removal link is the ultimate chestnut, isn't it? It's the crown jewel, if you like.
Yeah, I think it's the equivalent of landing the knockout blow. Like, whoever you are, it can happen. And when something hits you as hard as Supernova, but split its own disc on Orte. It's not like Orte didn't stand up to it. They came out of it relatively unscathed, but the link popped out the top, and that's it. You're out.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shame to not see more of it. As I said, potentially, I think same with last week. These 4 robots, all 4 of them had the opportunity to go and win this heat.
Yes.
And ultimately, 2 of them have to go out in round 1, and Orte was very unlucky just to get hit straight away. It was a great start. I mean, very quick off the line, went straight for Supernova, and that was probably the worst mistake they could have possibly made, as it turns out, in the end. But
if their link hadn't have come out, they could have dominated Supernova.
Yeah, and in fairness, TR2 probably would have gone as well because they couldn't self-right.
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, I don't know any fan of Robot Wars that doesn't play the What If game.
Gotcha.
The thing with Orte is that Sam, I seem to remember, said he was gunning for Supernova from the off because he was so worried about it. So maybe that was a bit of naivety in there.
But at the same time, you got to think, if had the disc spun up, I think had they had time to rev the disc up properly, I think would it have been worse? Could Orte have come out in a bin bag? But
I don't think so. Orte was so well armored and so well put together that the only outcome I think that would have happened for Orte would have been either the link comes out or they won.
Yeah.
That was how well made Orte was.
Yeah.
It was something little like the link coming out or the gas not flowing properly because it was so cold. That's the thing that would have gone wrong and killed them, or they would have won.
I suppose we should move on to. I think we'll move on to Big Nipper next, and they were determined to go in that pit, weren't they? They were They really tried. They I have no idea. Like watching that back, I remember Big Nipper nearly fell down the pit in the first time, but I didn't realise how close it was. It was literally wobbling, and it was gonna go. I honestly think had they had the claws on, it probably would have gone down.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the disc, because it was so heavy at the front, just kept it in.
I said to my wife watching it back, I said, I didn't remember that had happened. It was a bit like you said, Sam, that we were actually there, and I didn't realise quite how close they were to going out. The thing about Big Nipper is it's probably the most advanced engineering of any robot in this entire series.
Really?
It's running on brushless motors. It's compact. There's a bit in this episode where it goes head on with Supernova, and the only damage they took, apart from the disc came out of its mounting, the only damage they took is 2 bolts fired themselves out of the back. So the entire robot acted like a huge kind of shock absorber and loosened 2 bolts at the back of the robot.
I have to say, looking aesthetically just at Big Nipper itself, it is an absolutely stunning piece of kit. Honestly, just to look at it, it just looks so sleek and tidy, and it's just like, why would you send that to get mashed? Why would you do it?
As an engineer, looking at something like Big Nipper, you can tell that it's made by people who are proper engineers, who are tool makers. It's so well made. The whole thing is beautiful.
It just looks like it's millimeter perfect. It's just like, why would you send that out?
And the only thing that really annoys me about Big Nipper is its wheels. Because I don't know if they were this time, but the last time I saw Big Nipper, they weren't running like wheels that you can buy off the shelf. They were running hockey pucks that they drilled the middle out and put their own hubs in.
That's amazing.
They were hockey pucks. And I was like, that's incredible.
Well, I mean, another thing that I find amazing about Big Nipper is that it's 8 wheels, isn't it? It's 2 on the top, 4 on the bottom, 4 on the top, and that really aids their control, because if they get flipped over, they just keep going normally. Whereas, say with Foxic or any other invertible robot, for example, the controls are inverted.
Yeah.
Well, Foxic doesn't run right side up, so that's not really a good example.
Ignore me. Okay, so Shockwave then.
Shockwave, something like Shockwave,
a robot that works.
A good robot that works. Yeah, that you'd have to invert your controls, or
Yeah.
I actually drive backwards anyway, so I drive with the back forwards and left.
I was going to
It's
say, because
right is
you
left.
have because you have the two scoops, don't you? Have the different
Yeah.
scoops. Yeah, that was Foxit was the worst example I could have chosen.
Yeah, go with someone like Shockwave next
Yeah,
time.
someone that can actually win a fight.
Yeah, and go upside down.
Oh,
Oh,
I
big.
think that the thing about Big Nipper is that it's really encouraging for me because it's the most powerful robot out there. It's the best made robot, and yet they can't put the power down. They were skidding all over the floor because they were so quick.
Yeah, the grip levels, obviously, we've mentioned before, were a big issue for everyone really, but for someone like Big Nipper with so much torque,
Yeah.
if you like, it was just skidding around all over the place.
And no, I mean, knowing those guys, they'll go away and they'll fix that instantly. So next series, Big Nipper's
They'll just have magnets for wheels.
Yeah, probably.
That's all it'll be.
Oh dear.
But it's this thing that it becomes encouraging that you can have all the engineering prowess in the world and you can still be beaten by someone who builds it in the shed.
I said it's a good level which BattleBots doesn't really have.
Yeah,
like, in terms of money doesn't buy you everything.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, as you said, technically it's far superior to a lot of robots that have entered this series, but ultimately it would still be able to be
say
beaten.
this, but Ray Billings of Tombstone builds his robots in his garage. Now he's getting a really nice workshop as sort of like he's spending the money he's getting from like BattleBots and stuff. But his bot, like Last Rites, is just tube welded together.
Yeah.
And it's I think that's kind of getting forgotten because he's become so good. But you are right that generally BattleBots is now this unobtainable, like you need thousands upon thousands
spend to
get
win,
in.
spend to win sort of thing.
Yeah, kind of that. But there's a bigger aspect of like sponsorship. You can throw sponsorship that you can't do with Robot Wars because it's the BBC and we all pay our license fee, don't we, people? So, yeah.
I think Big Nipper's pretty much been covered. I mean, as I said, it was great theatrics to try and keep it just in the arena, not in the pit. I think had it gone down, I mean, it would have been a massive shock for me. I mean, because as we said, these four were all kind of, they could probably go and win this heat, but Big Nipper for me was one of the ones that I was expected to see further in the heat than some others.
I think in the pits there were a lot of people kind of expected Big Nipper to walk this heat.
Really,
they absolutely could have done.
Yeah, and the fact that they do so well on the live circuit is like the driving.
They've won the UK Championship twice, so they know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously now it's much improved with the big nasty spinning disc as well, and. Well, I think we'll cover Big Nipper more as we get to the head-to-heads. I think we'll move on to TR2, who in the first round obviously didn't have the weapon. Didn't need it in the end, but things could have been very different had Ortay, for example, not died, or had Supernova not got skidded across the arena and ended up in the pit. But TR2, I thought it was a very controlled fight for TR2. They were very on top of the fight in terms of just like dictating the pace. They did what they wanted to do. They were pushing Supernova around for majority of the match.
A good driver will always win a fight.
Yeah,
and that's one thing that TR2 has.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex Brown is a stunning driver.
There are two drivers in the UK right now that are, they're around about the same age. I think there's only about 3 years between them, and they are both just so good. They win everything, and it's the guy that drives Eruption. I know him so well, and I can't remember his name. And Alex, Alex, we'll come back to that. Alex is fantastic. He's one of the best drivers in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Probably the best driver in the UK.
Yeah, watching that fight, you just got the impression of just sort of like a self-belief that they can just go and do, just dictate the fight how they want to go and do it. And coming into the series, I said TR2 was going to go and win this series, purely because one, it was pretty successful in the build-up to this into Robot Wars 2016, but the amount of that robot's improved. I mean, I mentioned to Dave earlier, this is, I can remember back to the Andy's Army days. This is, the amount of evolution that's gone on with TR2 is crazy, and the driving skills as well. That's gone, they've been around for donkey's years, haven't they? So
Yeah, what's nice about TR2, and it's I know that they're new to Robot Wars as a TV show, but it's a complete joy to kind of see them doing well in a televised aspect for us lot,
yeah,
because they're such a well received team in general. But the thing about those guys is TR2 now is a great machine, but it's not an advanced machine. It's still kind of low end engineering. They've learned everything from the ground up. When they started, they couldn't weld. They didn't know anything about speed controllers or gearboxes. TR2 is the testament robot for future fans. When if you actually get down and get on with it, you can learn how to build these things, and you can
absolutely. Looking at it from like a fan's point of view, it looks. We'll compare it to Big Nipper, say, in this fight. Big Nipper is obviously, very high tech. It looks high tech.
Yeah.
TR2, it looks again like a kind of like a grungy robot. It looks quite like it not like
It's been to war.
yeah. It doesn't look like simple. It is simple, but like not like it doesn't look simple. It looks like it could do some work, but it doesn't look like, oh my god, this has cost thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. This is far too scary for me.
Yeah, I mean TR2 is a workhorse.
Yeah.
I think last year they didn't miss a single event.
Yeah.
They just turn up, they drive the robot, they take it home, they charge the batteries, they turn up next week, and that's the difference between them and everybody else in this heat.
Yeah, it's just so it's ground in. That's a good way of describing it. It's well ground in, and I think that experience sort of showed in this fight. It just looked composed.
Yeah, well, to go in without a weapon, like Alex said, about halfway through, he tried to fire Supernova, I think it was. He got underneath him, he pressed the flipper, and it didn't work. And instead of doing what most of us do, which is go, he went, oh, okay, that's not working. And then he went and won the battle anyway. Like, it's about, he knows his machine so well that if anything stops on it, he can still pull it out of the bag. And it's that level of driving that sets TR2 apart.
Ultimately, I think that's what sent them through, really, wasn't it? That was the key
Absolutely,
thing.
Yeah.
It's not luck. It's just being that good.
Yeah, I think self belief as well. The fact that they believe that, not that they're going in and thinking, oh yeah, we're just going to walk this. It's a thing. Okay, we can just go and win this. This is just how it is.
Yeah,
that was. I think what that showed was that he had the confidence that Alex and Clive and Wendy, they had the confidence in the machine because they go to every single event, because they're such good drivers, because the machine is so reliable. They were confident in the fact that, okay, the robot will do what we want it to do. And when it doesn't do what we want it to do, we're confident that Alex can do it. And, they've got so much experience at this. It
was just a pleasure to see. And then I think we've pretty much covered TR2 enough in this fight. I think, Supernova is the last robot in this heat. And one thing I want to point out before, we get on to much of Supernova, they cut out, in my opinion, what I thought was the best bit of the fight, where the TR2 slams Supernova into the arena wall, and the other tooth that didn't fly off when they hit Orte, the other tooth ended up lodged in the arena wall and split straight through it, which is pretty scary. But yes, Supernova, unlucky in a sense that they just kind of got tipped on their side and they just kind of fell in the pit, really, but they just didn't really get going.
I think we spoke last week about how unlucky Supernova's been throughout all of Robot Wars, not just this one. And it was a testament to them that they got it into the arena at all. I know that Craig had a hand in helping them get in there after their speed controller blew. And then he was driving blind. He was kind of flailing about the arena with a robot that he wasn't driving in the way that he would normally drive because it had new components in. And I think to come out with that degree of control over a robot that's quite mad anyway.
I was going to say, like, grip has never been the strength of Supernova in general. It's always slid across the arena. It's always been a bit difficult and twitchy, but and as well on this arena floor as well, even more slippery than it has been in previous series.
The bit where it was gyroing up on its side next to the pit.
That was so cool.
He still managed to go forwards and get it away. which nearly caused Big Nipper to go in. I mean, it was just phenomenal driving, and you cannot help but think that if Supernova was at full working mode, that he would have aced that.
I think this Supernova would have done so well if it had gone through to the head-to-heads. I mean, it would have literally have ripped everybody a new one. I was so disappointed when they came back to the pits, and I was like, "Oh, hey man, how'd you get on?" He's like, we're out."
Another thing that I found, as you know, I think you mentioned the gyroscopic effect on Supernova when it was near the pit. I liked it when it was actually in the pit. It was just kind of like lifting itself up. I was like, whoa, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it went in the pit, and then it took about 20 seconds before it actually landed. It was just sort of.
It was just kind of like hovering there.
Like
it was great. That was
around the bottom of the pit.
That's great. I love a bit of that. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame to see. Yeah, go on.
When you're drawn into a battle with something like Supernova that is so scary. Yes, from a TV point of view, it would have been amazing if they'd made the head-to-head. As Craig said, I think they would have dominated, but you cannot help but try and get rid of them. I mean,
in a competition sense, you cannot have a robot like Super. If I was in a fight with Supernova, as much as I love Supernova and it's one of my favorite robots, I would go straight for Supernova.
Yeah, you've got
to take that guy out. It's like, nope, can't be dealing with this.
I think that's what Orte were trying to do in going for it, but ultimately it kind of ended up going against them in the end. But I do get what you mean. It has to be like you have to try and kill the one that's going to kill you first.
Yeah, when you're sat in the arena in those melees and there's 4 of you, TV does not cross your mind. You are in there, you are competing, and you want to be the one to get through to the head-to-heads. You want to be the one who gets their little biog on TV and who gets more screen time, So you do anything in your power, and you celebrate any victory, however kind of cheap. If a link falls out, or someone else dies, or you push someone in the pit, or someone drives in the pit.
Or someone falls in the pit holding another robot.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, yeah, fine.
Yeah. that works too.
Round two of Robot Wars is such a holy grail for new builders.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
That's when you become a feature.
Yeah.
And
especially now with the round robin tournament, it's such a different dynamic to how it was before.
Yeah, I mean, it guaranteed us an extra day of filming and therefore of experience when we got through.
Yeah.
You won't turn that down. And if you're in with someone like Supernova who you feel may cause you problems later,
you get rid of it straight away.
I mean, go back to the first battle. I think if I was driving Dan Tomkier, I would have taken King B out and left Glitterbomb running because I knew that the round robin was coming up. And I think we'll see a lot more of that in kind of Series 2 and beyond.
Like more tactical eliminations for like the stronger robots in the first rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Because people forget that it's a game show, it's a competition. It's not, we're not there to necessarily make the best TV. The producers and the editors make the best TV out of whatever we do.
Yeah.
But for us, it's war.
Yeah, well, there you go. So obviously, going out in that round, we had Supernova and Orte. Quite unlucky, really. So we move on to the head-to-heads. And first up was Dan Tomkier and King B, I think it was. And I think this was pretty much a foregone conclusion, wasn't it? They fought before, and it pretty much ended the same way.
What a wonderful bit of driving from Swanee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shane Swan, there was a bit of dancing at the beginning, and then he just stuck the throttle on.
And that was it.
I think on Twitter I said, "Oh, he found a King B-sized hole in the side of the arena and just sort of inserted them into it." I mean, it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was. I mean, as I said, it was. I think everyone kind of expected that was the way it was going to go, but at the same time, like to get it just so it couldn't get out and it was stuck in that little gap. I think that was it was a great bit of driving.
Yeah, I think the result was a foregone conclusion in a lot of people's mind, but the way it happened was just stunning. It was
just superb driving from Swanee.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was tactically aware of his surroundings. Where he put King Buxton was the important thing.
Yeah, and we saw it out of the arena. for the first time, and it was Matilda of all things to get it. I mean, Dan Tomke is obviously very famous for getting God knows every single competitor ever out of the arena, really, and it didn't get one this series, which is kind of odd, really. But King B were the first ones to fall out of the arena.
We touched upon it last week that it's a lovely thing about the new arena where out of the arena in kind of 7-8 seconds is no longer a thing.
Unless you're very, very, very good.
Yeah, well, every flipper that turned up, and even some of the non-flippers, were everybody wanted to be the first to do it.
Yeah.
And so far in this series that's gone out, nobody's done it yet.
Yep, Matilda holds the record currently.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Carbide was the closest to getting somebody out so far.
They got half of it out of the arena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's a testament to the new arena. It's just such a kind of special thing.
Yeah, I was watching. I think it was it Craig Colliers who did a video on it of Team Gabriel. He did a video about explaining why the arena is so good. Is because if you're not if you're in the middle, that's the only safe place because obviously you've got the arena hazards and whatnot and the house robots, or the out of the arena zones, and the center of the arena is the worst place you want to be because you're just exposed.
Yeah.
And so there's just no way you can hide. It's really quite interesting when you think about it. Obviously, you got other arenas around the world, like they say the Battle Box, which is quite bland by comparison. There's not much in it, but credit where it's due. The designers of the arena, I think Robo Challenge were consulted about it, if I remember correctly, and they've done a great job. They've done a fantastic job with it.
That pit is huge.
Yeah, it is. It is enormous.
It's so big. I mean, it is begging for a house robot to fall into.
Oh god, yeah, it's ready for it. It's so ready. I mean, at least you tried, Craig. You tried. You were trying to get Dead Metal down it, but it didn't quite happen. Any further thoughts on Dan Tomke and King B?
No, Swanee superb driving. Matilda's out of the arena.
That's all she wrote, really.
That's it.
That's all we've got.
Big Nipper and TR2, a masterclass as far as I'm concerned. This was
again, yeah.
The driving was stellar. Bit surprised they went with the claws, Big Nipper on this one. I mean, obviously the disc was damaged in the first round, but I think did they have it repaired by this point, or was it still
not?
Yeah, the disc was very quick to be repaired by them. They went for the claws for tactical reasons, I think. I think they were hoping to control TR2, kind of get its wheels up off the ground and push it around, which is what they do a lot on the live circuit. But Alex just did. Yes, they do. Alex just didn't give them the opportunity, at all.
Yeah, they also had issues with I think they were saying they had issues with the lifter motor on the actual weapon arm, so they could. I think they could do the claws,
but not the lifting.
I think it's done on a clutch system. So they've got one motor that does the claws and the lift.
Yeah.
So I think they were either having one or two of the clutches slipping. So it just either.
Oh, has Craig just died? I think Craig's just died. I don't know. I think we get where he was going with that in terms of the weaponry wasn't entirely functional for that fight for Big Nipper, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
I think when they took it out of that, they talked about the power being down as well, and they were kind of a bit confused as to why. I don't know if they ever enlightened themselves on that, but like I say, I just don't think Alex gave them any opportunity to do anything to TR2. It was a masterclass again, wasn't it? Yeah, it was beautiful driving.
It turns out Craig has in fact died. So we'll motor on. We'll motor on. I'm sure he's here with us in spirit. So no real further things to say about Big Nipper and TR2. So next up we move to TR2 and Dan Tomke, which was great.
Yeah.
Which was a great watch, and I think a bit unfortunate that Dan Tomke was it this match or the other match with was it the Link or was it the flipper that started venting? I can't remember if it was the other one.
This was they did have problems with the gas on this one. There was a bit where the gas started coming out, and that's why they couldn't self-right eventually. again, there was a lot of talk before Robot Wars came on that everyone kind of went, I hope it's not all flippers because that's what's on the live circuit. There was a lot of flippers around and they were hoping for more original designs. But I think this fight just, flipper on flipper,
It worked very well.
yeah, it was surprisingly entertaining to watch considering we've seen a lot of similar fights. And I think that's a testament to the two teams more than anything. I think that Dan Tomke is quite unusual for a flipper anyway. It's a different shape, a different kind of color, a different way of working.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't just turn into a kind of flipper fest. There was genuine tactical.
There was good. There was good driving involved as well, which I think was very, very key for me. Because, like, again, I know we've gushed quite a lot about Alex's driving in this heat, and obviously Swanee as well. But I think for me, Alex once again just getting on top of Dan Tomke. That's not an easy task, especially when his robot's half as quick.
Yeah.
I think that's a good testament.
It's a good thing to point out about TR2 is it's not the quickest around the arena. It's very easy to kind of put where he wants it, but it's not quick. And the fact that he can stay on top of someone like Dan Tomke without necessarily having any speed behind them is quite incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you say that we gush a lot about Alex's driving, but it was really the highlight of this heat.
Yeah, definitely. It was the way he just moved around the arena was just so well controlled. It was great to see.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's pretty much sorted with Dan Tomke and the introduction of the bum axe.
Oh yes,
I love the bum axe.
Can't go anywhere further without talking about.
I'm sorry, like I know that they obviously added it to like try and make it a little bit different, but it was pretty pants, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, but it was so good, and it was this thing about TR2 was so dominant this heat and so impressive, and they still had this moment of kind of genius / insanity / I don't know what that
Let's
was.
go for the bum axe. Let's go for it. Let's see what it can do. It just didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what it is. It's the fact that they put it on in jest, kind of,
and they actually used it.
Brought it into operation, and when we know this isn't going to do anything, but it's so we're going to use it anyway. And it was so funny to see, and Dara's reaction was
that was gold. Honestly, I love the bum axe, but I also did love the. We'll get to what else I loved in a minute, but I think that's pretty much all there is about Dan Tomke and TR2. Next up, we move on to King B and Big Nipper, and I thought right at the start of this fight, I thought King B was just going to shove Big Nipper straight down the pit. They went straight for the pit. I think they knew they had control issues from the previous fights, and they went straight to try and push them down.
Yeah.
And I think that was they really went for it, and it just didn't. They just didn't quite get it quite right, did they?
It's painful knowing Simon Harrison because I think by this stage of the competition he knew he was out pretty much.
I think realistically, if you don't win the first fight, unless you're very lucky later on, you're pretty much going home.
Well, I mean, Carbide proved that wrong.
Well, that's very true. But I think normally there's one standout competitor in each heat, and I think if you end up losing in the first fight and you haven't fought the standout robot yet, it's kind of like, oh, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
But I think ultimately we saw with as you said with Carbide it is possible, but with King B, yeah. King B's not competitive anymore, is it?
Oh, bless him. I think he was really, really gunning for it.
he tried. I think that's the.
Yeah, I think what's amusing is the kind of pathetic way that it kind of died. The Big Nipper brought the disc in, which was good to see. There was some chippage there. I know Jonathan Pierce seemed to blow it out of proportion.
Yeah,
for me.
It was trimming the back of King B.
Yeah, it was a light slap on the back, and there was some kind of plastic debris flying off. But they, as they said in the pits, they had a removable link there, and it was even Big Nipper were disappointed when they said we wanted to do some serious damage, and all we did was knock the link out.
Yeah, but I think we have to say a bit of great to see the respect once again. Not going in and killing it, but then not going in and then after it was dead, then giving it a good kick in. That's that's obviously something I like to see. Not destroying it outright because it obviously still had a fight left. Had it been the last fight, maybe we would have seen a bit more in terms of Big Nipper going in and like throwing its batteries and stuff around the arena floor. But that would have been very nice. So yeah.
I'm not sure they had the potential.
Really?
I think that disc was. I think it was designed to nibble people and to do things like catch removable links, maybe throw people into the air. But I don't think it was designed to kind of rip them to shreds. I personally don't think it really had that capacity to it. I think it did what it was supposed to do in that fight, and it was, slightly disappointing. But it's the thing about King B is every so often it will go out, and it will go out in kind of a poor way, but everyone will welcome it back.
Exactly. I think again, the team. As much as I'd love to see them come back, I would love to see them come back. But I really hope one day they bring a new robot, because God bless King B. It's been around since the dawn of time. It feels like but it's just not there anymore, is it? It really isn't. And of all things as well, they didn't put the blade back on.
Yeah.
As well, that I mean, obviously that's probably a timing issue more than anything. But oh dear.
Yeah, I would say don't bank on him building a new robot either. It's King B all the way.
King B or bust. One day King B will win the series and it will be victorious.
King B or bust is a great name for the next.
Actually, I was going to say we've had King B 3, King Buxton, King B Powerworks, King B Remix, and King B or bust.
Yeah, Simon and Grant, if you're listening, and I'll send them a link to this. Please call it King B or bust.
King B or bust. That has to be it. That has to be it. Yeah. Moving on to in my opinion, the most important fight of the night, because I was on this bit. For once, I got my 1 second of fame before TR2 and King B remix. I got the activate, and I was so happy. I didn't even notice it. My friend messaged me straight away. He goes, "Oh, Sam, you're on it. You're on it." I was like, "I was." And
what I love about it is how sheepish you look. After all these years and weeks of sitting watching it at home and being
I was on it before, many, many, many years ago. I got my 1 second of fame then as well. But I think that this was the third day of filming. It was the third day I'd been to. I was so tired. It was so cold. And I was just there like, I just want this to be over at this point. Like, not in a bad way, obviously. It just got to a point where I was like, okay, do you know what? Maybe 3 days of filming wasn't the best idea. Maybe 2 was enough. But I got my 1 second of fame, and once again, really, this fight was pretty much a one-horse race, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the only thing to say about this fight was we got to see Kill-A-Lot in action, which
we
was
did.
Fantastic.
We got to see a bit of roasting for King B,
Yeah, a little. He wasn't immobilized at that point, so we did have to let him go. But it was a nice gesture on the part of Kill-A-Lot.
Yeah, give us a bit. Kill-A-Lot, give us a wave. And yeah, absolutely. And then obviously King B ended up in the pit. And as we said already, that's the last we see of King B this series. I really hope it's not the last we see of, maybe not the robot, but certainly the team. They came across so well. They just looked so friendly. And I think you mentioned this as well before that fight. They were saying, I really hope we didn't mention this.
My favorite part of the whole episode was Grant in the pits saying, "Oh, we've got one more fight. We haven't won any yet. We need to go out and show what we can do. And King B's a great robot, and we just need to prove it this one time." And then we pan over to Simon Harrison, and he's just staring
blankly at King B.
Gloomy silence, and the camera held on it for so long.
He was smiling, but there was a grimace behind that smile. He knew it was coming.
It was just like looking into his soul. You could see straight through his kind of application.
One thing we didn't mention as well. They snapped the chain on their drive, which is ridiculous.
Well, King B. Interesting is it's kind of seen as like the fans think it's this kind of slightly dull box robot that's that gets in because it's a stalwart and it's been around for years. But King Bee's always pushed the drive technologies. They were the first to do 36 volts before Tornado came in and did all that. They were the first to push up. They had their own cooling system in the robot at some point.
that was in Series 4. That was years ago.
Yeah.
They've always pushed the envelope on a lot of things.
And Simon doesn't just rest on his laurels with King Bee and it just gets it out the shed every year. That's not how he works. He's gone away and he's tried to make a new competitive version of King Bee. And every time something minor goes wrong, and this time it was those chains, where the drive system was so powerful that
it killed itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It tried to move the Earth, and the Earth said no.
King Bee's always been its own worst enemy. Like it's
always blown up or something, or
it's just gremlins.
But as I said, King Bee, come back.
King Bee or bust.
King Bee or bust it has to be King Bee or bust. That is the new entry, and if it is called that, that'd be amazing. But
you'll take your 12% royalty.
I'm taking all the royalties, but this is golden stuff. This is and our final fight, which in my opinion I thought was fight of the night. We've done a sort of like thing every week. Which was the best fight of the week. This one for me was Big Nipper and Dan Tomkia. This was great fun.
Yeah, this is my favourite fight too.
Good choice.
It's just superb. It was so good watching it because we were in the audience at this point. We were snuck into the corner and accidentally wore the top hat so people noticed us and things. But it was such a good kind of equal rumble between Big Nipper was flying all over the place and then got stuck in with Kill-A-Lot, who picked it up.
And then Kill-A-Lot got stuck.
Yeah, but Big Nipper did that wonderful thing when Kill-A-Lot had picked them up and they started rotating the body around to try and get free, which I just thought was brilliant to watch.
One thing that I'm disappointed they didn't. I don't think Jonathan Pierce mentioned this, but Big Nipper ripped the flipper off.
Yes,
or at least the front blade at least of the flipper.
Yeah, that last hit, you do get Jonathan does go, "Oh, cool, what a hit!"
Yeah.
But it's not mentioned that the end of Dan Tomkia's flipper flew across the arena, and in the next fight, the final fight, you can see how bent it was.
It wasn't quite right after that. I mean, obviously, we'll get to the heat final in just a second, but at that point, you just think that's why I think ultimately that we didn't see the full potential of Big Nipper's disc.
No,
because I think ripping off Dan Tomkia's front flipper is not an easy task to do.
No, well, that's some thick hardox that can be made out of.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, in the first round when they were talking about military grade steel and everything,
that is not a joke. That is genuinely it's genuinely like tank material.
It's genuinely built like a tank, and the fact I think Big Nipper, if they could have put the power down that their drive was producing and they weren't skidding all over the place and finding it so hard to drive it would have been such a different story. And I think the fact that Dan Tomkia kept on top of them, there's a great moment where they sort of drive up the wall and flip them.
Yep.
And Big Nipper does a couple of somersaults and comes back down. It was just...
when they're up by Kill-A-Lot, it was great to see that as well. At that point, their flipper was already bent back on itself, I think, or something like that. And then they still managed to get underneath and chuck them away. It was great.
Yeah, it's always worth mentioning that. But Big Nipper weighs 110 kilos,
and it's just being chucked around like it wasn't nothing.
Yeah, and to say that Dan Tomkia is the same robot that it used to be and it hasn't quite advanced is ludicrous when you look at a fight like that. And it's the power in that arm, once it got going properly, was just extraordinary.
Absolutely, and as you said, brings us neatly to a heat final. This fight one went to the judges for the first time this evening. I think this is the first time it's gone to a judges' decision in this heat, and it saw Big Nipper and Dan Tomkia. Go on.
Oh, that fight. Yes, and after this fight, I talked to Mr. Stu, who is the weapons operator on Dan Tomkia.
Yeah, Stuart Barnwell.
And they thought they'd lost.
Really?
Yeah.
I think the reason had it been the old criteria, I think they would have lost
if
because
damage was the defining factor again, then they may. If this was BattleBots,
let's not get started on BattleBots. Oh god, I've seen too many dodgy decisions in that this year.
Yeah, I think they might have been a bit closer. But
Yeah,
no, from my point of view in the audience, they had it. I think it was close, but I think they had.
I think Dan Tom Key were doing a lot more of the chasing, and I think that's probably why they won. I think had it been the old system, I think probably Big Nipper would have won because it did it ripped the front off the flipper and it did put a few dents and scrapes and scratches into the armor. So I think probably could have gone the other way, but it was a close fight either way, and I think the right robot did win in the end.
I think Dan Tomkier was winning right up until that final massive hit, and then everyone kind of went, "Oh, I'm not sure anymore." But I think in the general sense of it was definitely the correct decision. But it was.
I think they were on top for more of the fight. I think.
Yeah, and it was the best we saw of Big Nipper as well. Probably because the pit didn't go down. But...
I was going to say that's the only fight I think in the whole heat where the pit didn't actually go down, and thankfully Big Nipper avoided it. But it leaves our heat final as TR2 and Dan Tom Kier, and again another good flipper exhibition between the two, and ultimately once again. Dan Tom Kier. I think Dan Tom Kier took a lot of damage from Matilda in this fight, actually, didn't it?
Yeah, you don't see it on TV, but there really was quite a lot of havoc wrecked by the flywheel in that corner. Then eventually something came loose on the weapon system, I believe, and it got flipped over again by TR2.
And
that was all she wrote. It was pretty much a carbon copy of their previous fight.
I think you do see it a lot more in the final shot where Dara and Angela have them both in the arena. You see the whole flip has been ripped off the back of Dan Tom Kier. So I think that kind of gave a scale of how strong the disc of Matilda was in that fight. It's kind of crazy to think that something of Dan Tom Kier's build quality, which obviously is immensely high as it is, and the materials that you use and everything else. Torn apart. It's crazy.
Well, Matilda's disc has the same system in it that Carbide has.
Yeah.
So this it's no longer a gimmick. Like this thing hits you hard, and it tore through the back of Dan Tomkier, and that was it. I heard a couple of people when this one went out saying that they thought it was a bit of a flat episode, and I don't believe that's true, and especially because the people I was talking to knew the results. So we're watching it from the point of view of knowing exactly what happens anyway.
Yeah,
I think the difference between this one and last week is that TR2 was the winner from kind of round one.
Yeah, whereas had Thor had done the same thing last week.
Yeah,
it probably would have been a little bit flatter as well last week. Whereas or say Dan Tom Kier had gone and won this week, it'd have been a bit. Oh my god, as if TR2's lost in the heat final.
But I think even Thor had judge's decision with Shockwave.
Yeah,
TR2's the first one to come on to dominate in its melee without a weapon, to then subsequently beat everybody by KO in the round robin, and then win the fight by KO in the final as well.
And make it to the final, without really being tested too much as well. It's
they certainly weren't at their peak for any of it, and I think that can have the effect of feeling slightly flat to people who know that that's coming. But I think from the point of view of an outsider, it was this new kind of legend being born.
I'll say a lot of people on Twitter in particular, I've seen comparing TR2 and Chaos 2. That is. I mean, obviously that's very high praise as is, and I think was it too much? No, not at all. I think TR2 were just coming into this series as a new robot, effectively to the general public. You have to say, I can see why the comparisons are made, and I think they're completely deserved. I think TR2 genuinely went out and did themselves completely proud this week. They were phenomenal to watch, and for me, worthy winners.
Yeah, I think when you've got everybody on the internet after 2 episodes have gone out saying, we need Hypnodisc, we need Chaos 2, we need the old ones back, and then you get a heat with someone like TR2, and people go, oh, there's the new Chaos 2. Like, I don't think we necessarily need to reinstate these 12-year-old legends. We're just looking for the new versions, and
Yep.
I think TR2's just some that. I mean, it was there's not a lot to compare it with Chaos 2. They're both pneumatically driven flippers. That's pretty much the crux of it.
Yep.
But they did the same thing that George Francis was so good at, which was control
And the driving.
and style. Yeah, and the driving, and they earned this mantle by they're quietly dominating. Like,
Yeah, it wasn't a case of like Carbide where you thought when Carbide just turned up and just smashed everything else to pieces, and you thought, okay, this is pretty dangerous. Where TR2 was just did its own thing and ended up winning out and deserving of winning out.
I think with Carbide, when Carbide went down to terahertz, people kind of went, "Oh, anything could happen here. Carbide is fallible." But currently, TR2's untouchable.
Absolutely, and thoroughly deserved their place in the grand final. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think at this point we can give our rating for the heat. For me, I actually thought this heat was the best of the bunch. No disrespect to you or anyone else. But for me, this is a 9 out of 10 heat. This was really good. I watching this on the TV live, like the hour flew by. I didn't even notice it go. It was great. I was engaged for the whole heat. It was excellent to see, and I didn't need the hedge this week. That's the main thing.
Yeah, your predictions came true.
Yes,
that always helps.
Absolutely. Dave, for you?
Yeah, I think for me, giving it from a Roboteer's point of view, it can feel slightly flat when someone who like we knew TR2 was going to do well. Like there was very little question because we knew the team, we knew the robot, and they came through. They did what they always do, and they went and won it comfortably. So from knowing all of that and from knowing what happened previously, I was kind of slightly less enthralled with this heat. But that's not the fault of anyone involved. It's just the position that I happen to be in. I think if you compare it to other series of Robot Wars and certain heats in other series of Robot Wars, for example, Chaos 2's defending title in Heat Series 5, where it comes back and the round 1 is just all Chaos 2, like there's no one gets near it. If you start to compare this heat to those kind of heats, then it starts to make sense and it starts to become very like it stands up to those past glories, if you were. Mm-hmm. So for me personally, I think I gave last week's a 7 out of 10. This one's on par. It's still a 7. I'm waiting for very extreme things to come in the next 2 heats.
Bringing things nicely to our quick preview for week 4, which sees Apollo, Eruption, Can Opener, PP3D, Sabretooth, Storm 2, Sweeney Todd, and Terra Turtle. Sort of like this week, you got a few robots there where you think, do you know what, they could do a fair bit of work in this heat, and others where you think, probably not going to do that well. Terra Turtle. But in all fairness, we have to give equal parity to each robot. And I think for me, I said at the beginning of the series, Apollo for me was the standout robot in that heat for me because it was it just looked very clean. Obviously it's Chronic underneath, isn't it? Really, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm going to point out because I always get in trouble for this, but Chronic and Apollo are
they are different robots.
Separate.
Yeah, they are different robots. Obviously, they're similar. They're built by the same team. I'm fairly sure that's the case.
Yeah, the same group of people built them both. They're based upon each other, but they are different.
It's a bit like how Carbide and Cobalt are 2 different robots.
Yeah, exactly. And they're both they do differ. Like they look the same from the outside, but each robot does differ for the environment that they were designed to be put into.
Absolutely. Looking at this heat, obviously, for me, there's 4 obvious robots there that stand out to me. And I think, do you know what, they're probably going to go through and probably going to be the ones that are fighting it out for the heat. Those being Apollo, Eruption, PP3D, and Storm 2. And we might even see the mythical rematch that everyone's been waiting to see between Gary Cairns and Ed Hoppett and PP3D and Storm 2. Everyone's been waiting for this for so long.
I'm keeping out of this one. I mean,
it's all like for those that don't know, I think they both acknowledge the fact that it was just a bit of a unfortunate situation that they were both put into.
Yeah. Both Gary and Ed, if you ask them, like they obviously the fans constantly ask them about the Series 7 final.
Yeah.
Neither of them really
want to
care.
talk about it. I think neither of them really want to talk about it as well. It's less a case of like they weren't really in control of the situation. It was outside of their control. It was just a case of these things happen.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, saying they don't want to talk about it kind of suggests that there's still a grudge there.
I mean, in a sense of like,
they really don't care. Like they get on so well. It's not a thing.
It's not a thing, is it? It's just it is a bit. It's the internet's thing more than their thing.
Yeah, exactly. But however,
with that said, it would be great to see them fight each other again.
Do we want to see PP3D and Storm 2 face off? Of course we do. We're fans of Robot Wars.
We want to see some closure to this matter once and for all. You know, as you said last week, though, the big mentor and focus this time on fair play, didn't they? That was the big thing.
Absolutely.
And obviously in Series 7, maybe we didn't see that as much.
Yeah,
we won't get into that as much.
No, there was definitely a thing from the people of, especially the Robo Challenge boys, who said, if we're going to do this, it has to be fair. Yeah, that was kind of like the bottom line of the whole bringing it back. Yeah, they wanted no controversies from the previous. They didn't want any tornado cage nonsense.
Oh, they cheated, and the Razor should have won the Series 6 title. Oh.
Yeah, they very much want, that I'm definitely in the camp where Tornado did nothing wrong.
Of course, they used the rules to their advantage, and they deserve it. And let's face it, other than the little bit at the end where Razor did get them, they dominated that fight. They deserve to win. Yeah. But anyway,
I think for the new one, it would have been a case of, well, Tornado have this from the start, so it wouldn't have been quite such a shock to see it turn up in the final.
Yeah, exactly.
It's lay everything out on the deck, say what everybody's got from the off, and then no one can complain later.
Exactly, because we'll get on to Tornado and Razor some other time, in the future when this series is all over.
Let's not. Let's not.
Looking back at this heat, there is no obvious winner. I mean, there's this. As I said, there's those four, but also Can Opener, could spring a surprise. They've a fairly decent machine on its day as well. Sabretooth, if it avoids the flippers, has a mighty spinning disc at the back, spinning drum at the back.
Yeah.
Terra Turtle, I don't hold much hope for. I'll be honest with you. Sorry, John.
Well, again, there was a lot by this stage of the competition. I mean, we spoke about it earlier. There were a lot of people looking at their first round melee and going, if I take out so-and-so and so-and-so, I'll be left with, example, Terra Turtle or Overdoser in round 2, And
I can win that one.
Yeah, those tactics did kind of start to creep around the pits a bit more. Whether anyone used them or not, I'm not at liberty to say. But I would say never count any. I mean, we proved with Nuts in Heat 1. You can't count.
I was going to say, I mean, that draw, like everyone would have thought, oh no, that Nuts is going completely. Yeah. But things happen. Things happen, like Razor falling in the pit, and things might happen again. Maybe some of the robots in Terra Turtles fight take each other on. Who knows?
Yeah. It's a very good heat, the next one. It's all over the place.
Absolutely.
To try and call it. I want to give a shout out here to Sweeney Todd, which is one of my favourite robots of the new lot. Okay,
but for this quick preview, I think we'll include the little story about when they first arrived. I think we'll include, and then we'll end it on that. I think that's probably a nice way to end it. So Sweeney Todd, they arrive for Robot Wars 2016. What happened, Dave?
Well, they came in and they trolleyed their robot over to their pit bench, and one of the guys picked it up and put it on the bench. And kind of everyone in the room went a bit meerkat. And they all these roboteers turned around and looked at them and kind of went, as a collective, did you just pick that up and put it
by yourself?
Yeah. And this guy, he's not, he's not built. He was quite a small guy. And he just sort of looked and went, yeah. And we all went, what does it weigh? And he said, 45 kilos, I think. And it was just this wonderful moment where this robot, and Sweeney Todd's great. Sweeney Todd is so original.
Yeah, as we mentioned in the preview, like as much as we don't hold that higher hope for it, the design and like the premise that it's built is just so clever.
The pictures on the website
They do not do it justice at all. No,
whatsoever.
absolutely not.
When you see it in the arena, you'll understand, and it's so much fun to watch. But those guys turned up. They thought their armor was very good, and then they went and looked at everybody else and went, "Oh, it's really not very good." They they're powered by motors that a lot of featherweights are powered by. It really was this eye-opening experience for them.
I will have to give one quick shout out again to Anderson here. It's not a middleweight. Let it go.
No, it's yeah. It's 45 kilos. It's absolutely hilarious to see it in the arena, and you will be surprised. I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely, and I think that really nicely wraps up this video. I hope you've all enjoyed watching this. Once again, it's an amazingly long video, but this is actually the shortest one we've done. Hurrah! We're getting better at this.
It would have been longer if Craig had.
Well, I was gonna say, it's a shame that Craig, I think he's had either computer issues or something's gone wrong with his Skype or whatever, but hopefully we can get him on for something else in the future. Anyway, I've been Sam64, and thank you once again, Dave, for joining me, and that's it, really.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be back next week, hopefully, to talk you through Heat 4.
Absolutely, and see you then. Goodbye.
Bye.